أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ففهمنا سليمان وكلنا آتينا حكما وعلما رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم سبحانك اللهم وحنانيك علم لا تنسني ولا تنسني الحمد لله أفضل الحمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وسائر النبيين والصالحين وسلم على موفقني واهدني وسددني واجملي بين الصواب والثواب وعذني من الخطأ والهرمان آمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Questions and Answers. I've realized today I look all in black, alhamdulillah. Black amama, black waistcoat and black jubba. Oh, but there is a little bit of purple on the old sleeves and along here. So yeah, a little bit of color there, mashallah. Pray you are all well. What is it and who am I and what's this all about? Well, I am Amjad Muhammad, and I will be your host for the next 40 minutes or so. And we will be talking about questions and answers. Well, actually, you will be talking about questions and hopefully I will be talking about answers. How do you get your questions to me? Well, there are two routes that we have for you. Route number one is to ring 01274 214 299. That's 01274 214 299. And therefore, if you ring that number, you'll come straight through to our producer who will take the call. And then he will just have you hanging in there because when he puts it through to me, obviously I might be mid-sentence. So allow me to finish my sentence and then I will just, so hang on, don't drop the call. And as soon as I finish the sentence or that particular paragraph that I'm speaking about, then I will take the call and you will be straight through into the studio. So you'll be able to speak through the speakers and everybody at home will be able to hear you. If, on the other hand, you'd rather not phone but email, then we also now have an email address which came about by chance. If you recall, a few months ago, we had some issues with our provider, with the phone lines, and therefore our phone lines were down for a few days. So we came up with the email address and now we've stuck to it as well because it seems to serve a purpose as well. The email for you is Q&A, that's Qanda, at iqra.tv, and you can see it there floating just about near my belly. Okay, and that's the email to contact in. So, windy and blustery day today, and you know, for those of you out and about, especially with young kids, just be careful. Don't walk too close to curbs and don't walk too close to the roads. It just takes a gust of wind and before you know it, you could end up on the road. So just keep an extra eye out for the elderly as well that are going to and fro their local shops, and also the youngsters as well. And especially if you're a driver, be that extra bit cautious that that somebody who's walking along the pavement might slip, the wind might push them. I've seen lots of people whose umbrellas have flipped inside out, and then because they've not realized, they're getting dragged onto the road with that in their hands. So, you know, we just need to be extra cautious. If we're all cautious, inshallah ta'ala, we'll all be safe. It just shows the power and authority which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala possesses when He sends winds, and these winds can disrupt our normal day-to-day lives. It becomes an annoyance, but we need to understand as well the power that He possesses. But also winds serve a greater purpose, and the greater purpose they serve, probably not too interesting for us folk here in the UK. It brings clouds, obviously. And if you lived in a very hot country, a very hot climate, then any cloud would be a good cloud, even if it was white and fluffy, with the hope that it also brings rains, especially if there is a drought in your area. So that's something to think about as well. Also, we know winds pollinate. Winds carry seeds around because there's numerous ways of pollination. One of the ways, there's numerous ways of, forgotten the word now. Yani, it is pollination. Yeah, I was right. That's what I see. You're doubting myself now. There's many ways of pollination, and one of the ways of pollination, obviously, we see bees flying from flower to flower, and without realizing, they carry some of the pollen on their hairy legs. And then when they land in another flower, then they end up pollinating it without realizing it. So bees serve a very significant purpose. And just on that, you know, when you look at a bee, you just think of, again, an annoyance like the wind. That, oh, you know, bee is going to come and sting me, is going to land on my sandwiches that I've brought on my picnic, what an annoying thing, it's buzzing around me, it could sting me, whatever. But what the bee's purpose is, apart from giving us nice honey, is to carry the pollen from one seed, one plant to the other, and therefore pollinate, and means that we can carry on living and having the various trees and flowers and plants around us. Anyway, enough of that talk about wind and talk about flowers. The number, again, just to remind you, is 01274 214 299. So please do get your calls in. I rushed from madrasa. I didn't have to walk too fast because the wind was carrying me. And so a little bit thirsty, but here we are. So let's pick up some of the questions from our group, okay? Whilst we wait for the calls to come in. There we go, gents. Right, how many questions do we have? We've got quite a few questions, goodness me. Plenty of questions. Okay, there we go. Oh, I think that's been answered, alhamdulillah. There we go. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I find many purpose-built masajids with cafes, restaurants, socializing circles, dunya and siyasat talks, etc. on the ground floor and prayers held on the first floor. Is it permissible to have such activities in the masajids? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Many people misunderstand what a masjid is. Many people think a masjid is the building, that is a mosque. Okay? Actual masjid, if you look at them, that's why I don't use the word mosque. If you look at the word masjid, it means place of prostration. Okay? Masjid, sajda, place of sajda. Okay. Now, when we say place of sajda, where do you make the sajda? You don't make the sajda standing up. You don't make the sajda bowing. You make the sajda on the ground. So it is actually the ground which is the masjid. This needs to be understood. The walls just act as a boundary to stop the masjid going to the other land beyond it. So if I was to say that this is my garden, then how do we know where my garden stops? Because my garden is land. My next door neighbor's garden is land. They look the same. So we have a fence in the middle. So we know that this is where this point is mine land and this point is their land. Similarly, for a masjid, we have a wall which says this side of the wall is a masjid, that side of the wall is not a masjid. That's point one. Point two is that not all parts within a building are the masjid. So we may have an office, that's not the masjid. We may have the wudu area, that's not the masjid. We may have the istinja area, that's not the masjid. The masjid will be the dedicated part when the masjid was founded, that this piece of land from here to here and from there to there, this square meterage is the masjid. And that's normally the main prayer hall. Once we have defined that and understood that, then anything above that, any floor above that is a masjid, and any floor beneath that is a masjid. So if we go under the ground and we dig out the ground and make a basement, all we've really done is move the ground down because this ground is still there. If we build a first floor, then that first floor, its foundations are on the ground. So again, this is the same. So even if we build 10 floors all the way up to the sky, even if we build a 60-floor skyscraper, every single point on that ground up is a masjid. Therefore, all the ahkam, the rules of the masjid will apply. As this brother has described it, he has said that there is beneath it on the ground floor socializing circles, cafe and restaurants, and on the first floor is the masjid. If this is directly above, then there is a problem, okay? Because as I said, the ground is the masjid. The first floor is based on the ground floor, because then all those activities are taking place in a masjid and they are not permissible. If, on the other hand, this is not directly underneath the masjid floor and not on the masjid ground which was dedicated, then it's not the masjid. So if you can urinate and defecate, for example, when you go to the mosque, the building, there is a place to place your shoes. Now your shoes will have filth on them. That's inside the building. There's a place to go answer the call of nature. That's filth. That's in the building. Well, that's not part of the masjid. So you may have a building which has a cafe attached to it, but the masjid is a separate part. So we need to be able to clearly define that. Okay, next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What is the correct way of... Okay, that one has been answered as well. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum. Is it permissible for females to study like medicine at a mixed environment and live without mahram away from home? I'm sure I've answered this many the time, but we'll answer that again. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This question has been answered, not specifically, but generally speaking. So it's better to search the group. However, as you may be a new member, I will answer it. When it comes to mixed environments, then this has been made quite clear that there should be separate environments for a lady to study and a separate environment for a man to study. That's crucial and key. However, if there is a way that the students are separate and they don't necessarily have to engage with one another, and the sister is applying parda, then there is some feasibility, but this would need to be discussed on a case-by-case basis. In terms of living away from home without mahram, that has its issues as well. First of all, traveling without mahram is a problem, and then secondly, obviously residing in an area where there is no mahram is also an issue. But again, that can be discussed also case by case when it comes to residing, not necessarily the traveling. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, respected Mufti Sahib. Is it permitted to pray Juma Salah in an Ahlul Bidah masjid behind their Imam? Also, is it permissible to donate Lillah or Nafal Sadaka to Ahli Bidah masjid, knowing what activities and Bidah they promote? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly, we have to be careful that we don't make sweeping generalized comments unless they have been verified. So let's just focus on the particular masjid. So if you have categorically seen that the Imam has performed acts of bid'ah, clearly, undeniably, and also you know that this particular masjid holds functions and does activities which are bid'ah, then we should avoid supporting obviously a masjid of such nature, and we should also avoid praying behind the Imam. But remember, let's not make sweeping generalized statements. Let's make a decision which is based upon evidence, and that evidence is observational evidence or evidence in which a person has made statements, not something in which we infer from something which can be subjective, because by this definition we are having sudan towards somebody. So before we do that, this person is a fellow Muslim, before we do that, we need to ascertain and get the evidence and then base our decision on there. Okay, that one has been answered. Good. Here we go. Another question. Remember, you can call in as well. These are questions that I have got on my group. Because I tend to answer these questions, I save them for the Q&A on Iqra that I have on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It means the last time I answered these questions was, no, maybe not even Friday, because Friday I think I wasn't here. We weren't here on Friday. I think we was cancelled because there was a Q factor thing going on, wasn't there? So therefore, I was here last Thursday. So therefore, there's been Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. What day is it today? Wednesday. Yeah. So there's been 6 days where questions haven't been answered, so they have accumulated. Anyway, let's look at the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In a local masjid, there is a poster stating, after witr salah, you can do 2 sajda in them. You can do 2 sajda. In a local masjid, there is a poster stating, after witr salah, you can do 2 sajdas. In them, recite 5 times subhun wa malikatu wa ruhu, something along these lines. In between the 2 sajda, recite ayatul kursi, and lots of virtues have been mentioned. Is this authentic? Also in one of the Islamic books, after wudu dua, Surah Al-Qadr to be read in this authentic. Similarly, some narrations I believe mention ayatul kursi. Are these valid, or is the second kalima the authentic narration? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Without necessarily seeing this, I think what I would suggest you do, brother, is to check if there's any reference given. That might make things easier. If there's not been referenced, then I would avoid. I don't recall this, or I've never come across this, performing 2 sajdas and reciting this in it. But, you know, I forget, I'm human, and I've not read every single book on the planet. So, but I've not come across this. I do not recall this. So maybe if you can send an image to the admin, because I don't think you can send images on here, the brother who puts the tags, and he will be able to, he shared it with me. And again, in between the 2 sajdas to recite Ayatul Kursi. Usually when you see there's lots of virtues for something, that's always an alarm bell. When it's such a simple, small task, and you get lots of virtues, lots of reward, that's a warning sign of it being extremely weak, if not potentially fabricated. Surah Al-Qadr, I don't recall reciting, hearing that after wudu. It's just the second kalima, as you mentioned, and I don't recall reciting Ayatul Kursi after wudu. So again, these are things that I've not come across either. So what you are confident with, I would restrict yourself to that. Okay, so we've still got a couple of more questions left, inshallah, and we can answer them. I think we've got a minute or so, so let me just grab this one. So, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is it makruh for a group of musafirs to leave the masjid after the adhan due to traveling? Also, is it possible for the same group to make their own Jamasala in the masjid before the main Salajama? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. If the adhan has been called, then usually there is a gap of 10-15 minutes between the adhan and Salah. Surely their travel is not so urgent that they can't wait 15 minutes to pray the Salah and leave. So there would be karaha in that if they did that. If, however, it was an absolute emergency that they had to leave now, they had no time to wait, okay, they had to go, then there can be some scope of permissibility, but one shouldn't, you know, be in that circumstance. I don't know of anything being that urgent unless you have to rush to a hospital. But going on a trip that could be an hour, 2 hours long, what's 15 minutes going to do? It's not really going to do anything. And can the same group, because they want to get off early, pray their own Jamaat Salah before the main Salajama? No, they should not do that. That will be makruh. They should wait for the main Jamaat Salah. So as I said, I can't see what the rush is that they have to leave 10-15 minutes early and they cannot wait 10-15 minutes to pray the Fard bil Jamaat. So yes, that will be a problem. So alhamdulillah, that's dealt with a numerous questions that we got on our forum. We still got a few more to do, but I sense that we're coming up to the end of the first session, and we will deal with the second session after a short interval. Also gives you time if you got any questions. I remember, was it Thursday, we had like, you know, phone call after phone call after phone call after phone call. We didn't even have enough time, and I had to rush off as the producer was telling me in my ear that we got to go off air, we got to go off air. And now it's nice and sedate. It's the calm before the storm, I think. Maybe everybody rests on a Wednesday. I don't know. But do come back. Do have some questions. I'll share the number with you now and repeat it when we come back. 01274 214 299. And you also have the email q&a@iqra.tv. I hope those questions were of some benefit to those viewers. We're going to take a short break and we will have more questions and answers soon, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.